Hello everyone, good morning, welcome to Adobe Live. I'm so excited today. We're gonna mix things up a bit. I am Spencer Nugent. If you've joined me before, welcome back. If this is your first time, welcome as well. We're gonna be playing with Photoshop on the iPad Pro, and it's actually pretty awesome. I will say, I started getting my feet wet with Photoshop on the iPad Pro last week, and I will say it's a fantastic product. So that being said, we'll get started here. I'm an industrial designer. I do a lot of drawing. I do a lot of other things. I make furniture. I take lots of photos, but I'm all over social media, as many of you are in this new and different world. And so we're going to be doing some social media related photo editing this morning. All right. Just going to give you a look ahead at what's coming up today, so you guys know real quick here. All right, so you're with me right now getting started with Photoshop on the iPad. As a side note, by the way, I should mention, as a side note, I will be checking the chat on behance.net/live. So if you want to communicate, hang out, chat, ask questions, whatnot, that's the place to be. So definitely check in, say hello. All right, so you're with me right now, 7:30 a.m., bright and early, getting started with Photoshop on the iPad. Up next, after this, we'll have Photoshop Daily Creative Challenge with Paul Trani. Then we've got some photo editing at 9:30 a.m. with Lizzie Pierce. The Illustrator Daily Creative Challenge at 11:30 a.m. with Andrew Hockrattle. I hope I'm not butchering everyone's names. My apologies if I am. 12, Branding and Identity Design. That's really exciting with Molly Russell. She'll be using Photoshop and Illustrator. We have the Daily Creative Challenge today for Adobe XD with Jesse Showalter. And at 2:30 p.m. we have the Draw Along with Kyle Webster. Always a pleasure. And if you haven't checked out his brushes, be sure to check those out. Hang out and draw with him. And at 3 p.m. we've got a design off with Voodoo Val and Sealy Bo. My apologies if I butchered that once again. Okay, so really excited. We're going to be doing Photoshop on the iPad. So to kick things off, I'm just going to give you a brief overview of the app and compare it a little bit with an app that I've used before on Adobe Live, Adobe Fresco, just to show you some comparisons and similarities between the apps, because Adobe's done a really great job, I think, of setting these up so that they feel natural and that they work well together. All right, so let's switch over to my iPad here. All right, this is actually Adobe Fresco, and I have this open just to remind you guys, because if you've joined me before, I've used this. We've got tools on the left, we've got layers on the right, and we've got app settings on the top, and that's pretty consistent with Photoshop on the iPad. All right, so let's open that up. I've got my CC folder here. Here's Photoshop on the iPad. I was just playing around. There's my cute pardon me, littlest son. That was just messing with. All right, so let's get started here. Similar interface, like I said. You've got home, your work, cloud documents, which is a really powerful way to work across devices seamlessly. So if you're used to working on the desktop, if you work on your mobile devices, all of that stuff, you will have access to those documents no matter where you work, which is pretty awesome. Okay, you don't have to think about it. It just shows up, it works. It's Adobe Creative Cloud. Okay, so let's start with just a basic example. I'm gonna go ahead and create a new document, and as you can see here, we have some recent documents that I was kind of playing with, but more importantly, if I'm working on a print document, I can tap print, and Photoshop for the iPad comes loaded with presets. Got my customary morning beverage, traditional for Adobe Live, I suspect. All right. But definitely say hi in the chat. I'll be watching that once again, behance.net/live. And also check out the Photoshop Discord. Maybe Tim can drop that link in the chat as well for you guys who want to kind of mess around in Photoshop and share some stuff. All right, so we've got all of our presets. There's tons of presets here. You know, you've got 8x10s, 5x7s, you've got your A series papers, you've got your imperial papers, letter legal, tabloid, and so forth. Let's just do the default Photoshop size for now, but I do want to show you screen. You have settings for screen stuff. If you want to do some sort of interface mock-up, we can do that as well. Or if you're working on something for film or video, it has those presets. So super handy. It looks overwhelming, but we can always start small and change those settings later. So I'm just going to work with this 5x7 to start in Photoshop. All right, so just tap create here. All right, and like I said, just like Fresco, I'm going to swipe over here. We'll see Fresco. All right, so pay attention to all these icons on the screen as best you can anyways. Oops, I erased a little bit there. Okay, I'm just going to swipe over and you'll see the interfaces are pretty similar, except Fresco for me right now is set up as the light interface, so that's why it looks the way it does here, but pretty similar. And if you have the fortune of checking out Illustrator when it comes out, you'll notice that the interface is also very similar. All right, so on the right, like I said, we have layers, so I can tap my layer icon. My layers show up or disappear. I've got an expanded layers panel. Okay, so if I want to see the full layer, turn things on and off, see masks, which we'll get to in a bit. I can adjust layer properties. So I have blending options, blend modes here. I can add clipped adjustments, and looks like effects and smart filters are coming soon. So we won't worry about those right now. We're going to use some basic tools to help our photos pop for today. Okay. We can add a layer. So if I want to create a layer, I just tap that little plus. If I tap and hold, it gives me some additional options to make an adjustment layer, or I can make a new empty group and then drop layers into that group. If you like to stay organized, I like to call what I do creative chaos. I'm not the best at organizing my files. We got a comment here from Steve. The iPad version is much more complete, like the desktop one. Yes, last year Photoshop debuted at Adobe Max, and I will say one of the awesome things I love about Adobe and their mobile products right now is you get tons of updates very often. So the apps are changing, the teams are working really hard on bringing all these features to the app. Okay, I can hide or show layers. This is going to be hard to see unless I have something on the canvas here. So let me just pick a brush. How about this Sumi tilt brush? I'll just draw real quick here on the layer. And if I tap that eyeball, okay, hide or show, I can add a mask to the layer. And you'll notice when I tap the mask button, I now have a secondary icon on that layer. And my colors have switched to black and white. So if I want to mask some of this, I can mask it, okay, just like I would on the desktop. Okay, we'll use that as well for photo editing. Okay, we can link or unlink or mask, okay? And there's two simple filters we can use. We can use a Gaussian blur. You know, I've never figured out how to actually say that. Gaussian? I've been using Photoshop since, I think, Photoshop 4, and I've never been able to figure that out, so I'll call it whatever I want. Anyhow, so we can do Gaussian blur or invert, and there's some additional options here for your layer. Layer actions, like being able to lock the layer, delete, rename. Again, if you're obsessed about organizing, super awesome. You can add clipped adjustments. We'll get to that. Multi-select layers, duplicate, copy, and so forth. Important ones at the bottom: flattening your layer, merging down, and merging the visible layers. Super handy. All right, let's move to the left side of the screen, and we have our move tool. Looks like we can't hear anything. All right, is that a little better? Let me know, guys. Sorry I messed up on the audio there. That should be a bit better. Maybe my kids were messing with my mic. I'm not sure. Okay, that should be better. All right, there we go. So we have on the left side now of the screen, make sure I'm not peeking on my audio. On the left side of the screen, we have our direct select tool. So if I want to move something on a layer or move the layer around, let's make this visible. And you can see I can move these strokes around now on my layer. We can transform, and this transform tool is actually pretty powerful for this mobile device. There's some differences between this and Fresco in that I can actually distort like a parallelogram. Okay, I can have a freeform distort here on the corners like so, or we can do kind of this perspective distort here on the corners as well. So super powerful if you want to mess with that, and some additional options here for rotation angle if you want additional precision. Once you're in transform mode, we can flip things left to right, top to bottom, undo and redo. Quick tip, if you want to undo something, get used to using your two fingers, whether it's these two, these two, these two, whatever is the most comfortable for you, because that's actually going to let you undo and redo. So watch as I tap with 3 fingers here on the screen. It's actually going to redo what I just undid. Say that 10 times fast at 7:30 in the morning. All right, so let me just paint again. Okay, so undo, redo, so you can kind of see what's happening. So get in the habit of that. It's a handy shortcut, or if you prefer, you can use those controls and commands at the top of your app window. Okay, good. Audio is great now. Thank you. Sorry about that, guys. It's always an adventure when working with technology. All right. So we have the selection tool as well. And once you pick select, we have a few options. So we can combine those selections. Okay, so for example, if I make a selection here, right, you can just draw that selection. Now we have the marching ants. That's what I like to call them, the marching ants. Looks like ants moving in a line. And if I jump to the move tool, you can see that I've now clipped and I'm moving that selection just like you would on the desktop. I can subtract from that selection if I change the option in that panel that just showed up. So tapping the middle icon here, if I want to just take away from that, okay, now I have less selected and I can move that new selection. If I want to perform a multiply selection, just like I would on the desktop, tapping the third icon down is going to allow me to do that. And that just means if I draw a new shape, it's going to find the intersection of those two shapes. So for example, if I draw another shape like so and release, it has intersected those two shapes and now I have that middle piece. So handy if you want to try that. You can also feather your selection if you want as you are working. All right, brushes, pretty straightforward. We have a color picker as part of this panel. We have the brush size. So if I tap on the number and drag up or down, I'm able to manipulate the size, or we can adjust the opacity of the brush as well. And pay attention and watch out for, because I'm still discovering things admittedly, but watch out for the 3 dots, the ellipses, because that's going to give you additional contextual options for your tool if you want to dig down deep and play with the features. Most important thing as we're getting started here is to get used to being creative, trying new things, and seeing what you come up with. All right. We have the eraser, pretty straightforward. We can pick different brushes to be our eraser, just like we can pick different brushes to be our paintbrush. We have a paint bucket tool as well. So if I want to fill pixels or spots here, this is starting to look like the carpet in the Portland, Oregon airport, if you guys have ever been there. So we have, let me go ahead and deselect. I should mention, once you're selected, you have a menu at the bottom of your screen that's going to allow you to deselect, erase, invert, or again, ellipses, more. And that more involves refining edge, transforming selection, or selecting similar. All right, I haven't played with select similar yet, but refine edge we'll use, and potentially transform or selection. We have a healing brush tool as well, and rubber stamp. So if you're working with a photo and you just need to clean it up, we can do that as well. Super smart, super powerful tools. Crop, right? And because we were selected on a certain portion of the canvas, the crop is constrained to that. But if you don't want to do that, just go ahead and, oops, I hit done. Just go ahead and deselect, then go to your crop, and we can crop our canvas in if we need to, okay? If you're not satisfied with the crop, just hit cancel and you'll be out of that crop mode. All right, text, another thing we can add in Photoshop. We'll get to that a little bit later in today's demo, and we'll be using that tomorrow as well. And as a side note, tomorrow we're going to be using Photoshop Camera to also manipulate our photos and create those social media stories we want to share with loved ones, friends, or even create memes, whatever you want to do, whatever your creativity is speaking to you. All right. And we can also import photos files or from our libraries, okay? Or Creative Cloud libraries, or the camera directly, and of course the eyedropper tool. So if I need to pick a color on the canvas, I can go ahead and do that. All right, so let's get started by, actually I'm gonna go home and I'm gonna go ahead and import a photo from my files. So to do that, I can just tap import and open, and this is gonna use the photo settings. So if you're like me and you like shooting photos, sometimes I shoot them on my phone, sometimes I'll shoot them with my DSLR, well, mirrorless technically, if I'm traveling, right? And I just want to make sure I'm working in a high resolution format. Photoshop on the iPad Pro can handle all of that. So let's start with a simple photo here. I'm actually going to start with this photo from a trip that I took this summer, where I went to Arizona. Went to Arizona. It was a beautiful trip and was able to spend some time in the desert and took a bunch of photos. So let's say I want to tell a story with this photo, or rather I want to post it. I want to make some improvements here. All right, so there's a couple things we can do or like to pay attention to when I'm cropping something is thirds. So thankfully I framed this photo the right way. We'll use this tool again as we work through Photoshop on the iPad today and tomorrow. But I'm trying to look for thirds, looking for a proportional breakdown in the main elements of the photo in thirds. And that's going to create a pleasing composition, okay? So that looks pretty good, actually. So I'm not going to worry too much about that. Let's jump to the direct select tool here. Also, I should mention, pinch to zoom with your two fingers will help you move or pan on your canvas, as well as zoom out or zoom in. And just as a quick shortcut, if you pinch in really quickly, boom. Whoops, I went ahead and moved that. But if you pinch in real quickly, like so, it's actually gonna bring it back to 100%, or rather filling your view window. All right, we can even turn those layer options off if we want and have a more compact view so that we can work more fully with our image. All right, so the first thing I want to do here is I'm going to create an adjustment layer. Okay, and an adjustment layer is going to allow me to edit this photo, because looking at it, it's a little bit washed out, and some of that had to do with the way the photo was shot, right? And I'm looking for enhanced detail, contrast. I want these colors to pop, because photos are about, or at least social media for me is about telling a story. And not always do I want to have my story look just washed out, you know. I want to enhance that. I want to add some filters. You know, filters are really what we're doing here manually. Okay, so my first adjustment layer I'm going to use, we could use curves, we could use levels. I'll go ahead and use curves. And so now we have this panel. We have a histogram that popped up. We have a straight line. What I can do here is on this curve, what I'm going to do is, let's see, the first quadrant to the lower left, I'm going to just tap on this line and drag down just a little bit. Okay, so that's going to enhance or make our shadows just a little bit darker. Okay, and now I'm going to move to the top portion of the curve here, and I'm going to drag up, and that's going to make our highlights a little brighter. So now we have a bit more contrast, and you can see the difference there in the image already. Those colors are starting to pop, the shadows are starting to pop, and this is feeling a lot more like what I saw. So you can manipulate light if you want in your photos in Photoshop. It's pretty awesome, pretty fun. Okay, if you want, you can change blending options for this layer as well, but I'm going to go ahead and adjust. We can even tap on our midpoint here if we want to play with the mid values, and you can see the water is starting to change a little bit. All right, if you're used to Lightroom, or if you use Photoshop on the desktop and curves, you'll be familiar with this. And it's really awesome that we have this feature here in Photoshop on the iPad. All right, so now I'm gonna hide that, okay? And just for comparison's sake, I'm gonna import the same photo in. I should have duplicated a layer, but I'm gonna import the same photo so you can see the difference. All right, so there's the before and there's the after. There's the before and there's the after. So it's already starting to really pop. Okay, so let's go to the full layer view, and you can kind of see here that we have this adjustment layer that says curves. Okay, well, what if I want to mask some of that? Well, the adjustment layer actually comes with a built-in mask, and you can see that square that is next to the layer allows me to mask certain elements. So if I want to paint with some light, guys, I can do that. It's pretty awesome. So let's try some of that and see what we can do. All right, I like to play with warm and cool light sometimes. This was a photo taken close to sunset down at Horseshoe Bend in Arizona. It was just gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. Hotter than heck, but absolutely gorgeous. All right. So let's play. Let's get creative and see what we can come up with. I'm gonna make a new layer. I'm gonna make a new layer here, and let's go to our paint bucket. But I'm gonna tap and hold and go to the gradient tool, and let's see here. Let's go ahead and pick some colors. We have options here in our color picker. We can pick using hue, saturation, brightness, for example. Type that in. We have RGB, LAB, CMYK, but I'm just going to use hue, saturation, brightness. I like this color picker. It's pretty simple. The hue, saturation, brightness all being contained in that square. Hue being the color on this rainbow. So I want to pick some cool colors. I'm basically going to try and tone my shadows a little bit, as well as my highlights, and just kind of have a filter created over this image. Okay, so now I have a gradient, red and blue. If I want to change the red, or maybe the intensity of the red, I can tap that color, drag down, and now I'm going to create a gradient. So to apply our gradient, I can just drag on the image. I'm actually not sure if it's going to go foreground to background or background to foreground here, so I'm just going to play around. All right, so I actually want this to go the opposite way, like so. So now I have a beautiful gradient over my photo. What am I doing? Well, let's tap the layer settings. Let's play with our blend modes. Okay, and we have some options here, just like we've been on a desktop. And I'm gonna go with overlay. All right, and now I've completely changed the look of the photo. In fact, if I tap these layer options, I can adjust the opacity of my blend, like so. And if I add a mask to this layer, I can now paint with a paintbrush. Let's pick a soft, round opacity brush. I'm gonna make it real big here, real big and juicy. And now I'm just gonna paint away on the rocks here. Okay, just painting with my stylus, just to get rid of some of the red tones, perhaps, on these rocks. But I want the shadows to be nice and cool. So here's an example of what you might see typically on social media. You have a photo, it's got a filter, but you don't really have the control you might want over that photo. Okay, you don't really have the full control of being able to say, hey, you know, I want this built-in filter to really just hit the shadows and not hit the highlights on my photo. All right, I can make a new layer. Say I want these rocks to pop even more, and let's go ahead and pick, I'm actually going to pick a color from the image here. So let's use our eyedropper, drag this over, and the eyedropper tool is going to show you the current color selected as well as the color that will be selected. So I've got red on the bottom, that was my initial color, and now I'm trying to pick something bright yellow like that. All right, so now I'm going to reduce my brush size a little bit, and this is going to look a little weird, but I'm just going to paint over these rocks. Okay, just a little bit here. So now we have a little bit more careful. You can even erase. Oops. Let's make sure I have a nice soft eraser. If you want to undo, 2-finger tap, remember. And I'm going to use the soft round opacity to erase, and just go ahead and erase some of what I did here. All right. Now the important thing is I need to change the blending mode here. So I'm going to switch to overlay again. Or you could try color dodge, linear dodge. Sometimes I like overlay. All right. So we can do that just like so. And let's play, just keep playing. Okay, we can play with the opacity of that blue. If you want it to be more intense, you could have something like that. If you want it to be less intense, okay, we can drag it down a little bit more. All right, so once again, there's our initial photo, and there's our enhanced and somewhat filtered photo. All right, one more thing I'm gonna do to this. Let's add a quick vignette. And as you can see, like I said, I tend to work in creative chaos. So my apologies if you're used to being organized, but if you do want to organize, I can double tap on the layer. It gives me a chance to rename that, and I'm just gonna call this color overlay. Okay, just like that, boom. So now I have a color overlay layer. If I want to find it again, super easy. I don't know why my screen just went green there. Hold up. This is really weird. I think my connection's a little bit loose. There we go. Apologies for that, guys. So if I want to add a vignette's just a little bit of darkening at the corners. It's going to help bring your subject to the foreground, essentially. You can kind of think of it that way. Okay, good. We're back. Looks like my video dipped out a little bit. All right, so the vignette's going to help add some focus because we'll have a nice bright spot in the middle. And we'll have some darkening at the corners. I may do one more thing here. I may just tweak the levels just a little bit on the rock. A little bit more. But let's go ahead and do a vignette. So what I'm going to do is hit select. I'm going to tap on that. And I have some options here under select as well. Okay, let's do a square select. But I'm going to actually have a nice generous feather on this selection. Okay, something like that. And let's go ahead and invert the selection. So invert's going to flip what's selected. I started with the middle. Now we're going to flip it. All right. But actually, let's reselect because I need to be a little bit bigger here. All right. Boom. So now we're selected. Got a little warning there. Now we're selected. I'm going to invert the selection. So now the opposite is selected. And let's go ahead and fill this with black. All right. You could fill it with black. You could also paint in there if you wanted more control. Let's just start by filling with black and see what we get. Oops. Because we have a couple little spots here. All right. So I'm just going to drag this down. And then now I can deselect. So I have a very subtle vignette over my photo. Okay. This is what we call a live adjustment layer. Awesome. So yeah, there is, let me drag this layer back to the top. This is our original. I'll rename this original. Boom. Rename that. And now we have a photo that has been enhanced. We've tried to put some of the emotion in the moment into the photo by playing with the light and color and so on. Super powerful and fun way to do that. All right. Okay. So there's the original. There's our enhanced version. You decide what you like. You play with it, pick your colors, textures, so forth, and you can apply and overlay these. All right, let's do one more here. Let's say we want to make an interesting collage that's not your typical grid layout or something like that. You may have seen Adobe Spark, really cool and inspirational product that gives you an opportunity to create social media content as well using templates. So if you're trying to just work quickly, but if you want something truly unique, Photoshop's a great way to do that. All right, so I'm gonna go back home here and let's create a new document. And like I said, I have some options here. So let's go to screen. And I happen to have an iPhone 11, which is roughly the same size as the iPhone XR, I believe. So I'm going to pick this as my template. Let's say I'm telling some story on social media and I want to actually send this to a story feature. You know, it might be your Snapchat, Instagram, that kind of thing. I think LinkedIn even has stories these days. Everyone's got stories. And we all have stories to tell, so might as well make them look good. All right. So now I've created this document that is the shape and size that something like I said, Facebook or Instagram, Snapchat as well might use. All right, so let's go ahead and import some photos. I'm going to go back here, tap on this little icon, and I have these options once again. If I'm out and about and I want to take the photo, that's totally cool as well. So I'm going to import a photo. So I'm going to go to Files. And like I said, I was traveling, went through southern Utah. It was awesome. It's beautiful. So let's go ahead and pick a couple of these. So I've got one here. I'm just going to put this up toward the top to start. And let's import another. It's absolutely gorgeous views. And just hit done for now. And I'm going to pick another. How about this one right here? Okay. Awesome. So we've got 3 photos that I can use. And while I'm at it, I'm going to go ahead and scale up because I want these to be a little bit bigger. I want there to be some overlap on these photos. And you'll see why in just a second here. All right. So let's tap on each of these layers. And once I tap on transform, I have these controls. A little tip for you. You might be wondering what this circle is on the screen. I wasn't at first because Fresco has it as well. So if you tap on this circle, you'll see I have some options, okay? I can transform unconstrained, okay, if that's what you want to do. Otherwise, because this is the iPad Pro and we want to make this pleasurable for you, we scale proportionally by default. So if I tap on this, we have an unproportional scale, or unconstrained scale rather. If I tap and drag outside, okay, then I can scale from the center. So if you want to scale up from the center, that's how you do it with that touch control. I'll do it one more time with our top image here, the very top. Let's go ahead, tap that modifier, slide your finger up, okay, and now we have our scale. Cool. Well, I actually want this layer to be on top. I want this layer to be on top. So I'm going to, this is DSC01533. I haven't gone through the trouble of labeling this, but again, if you want to label these, that's fine. This is actually from Bryce Canyon National Park. If you ever get the chance to visit, absolutely stunning and gorgeous spot, I will say. What's up, everybody? Hello. Alabek RB. Tim holding it down in the chat, as always. Thank you. Okay, so I don't really love the way these 3 images are placed right now, and I want to have a more interesting profile or division here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to import a photo from my files, and let's scroll here. I actually just took some paper and ripped it. Okay, so I have this ripped piece of paper right here. I'm going to scale that up just a little bit, and we'll use this a couple times. All right, so back to my transform, and I'm going to go ahead and rotate this. If you want to rotate your transform, there's a little handle at the bottom of your 8-point, is that 8 points? 1, 2, 3, yeah, 8-point transform box. I always forget if it's 8 or 6. So this 9th point, and now I can rotate my transform. So if I don't want that to be perfectly upright, I can rotate just a little bit, like so. All right, now I'm gonna hit done, and then I'm gonna duplicate this layer. So tap the 3 dots, the ellipses at the bottom, and I'm gonna go duplicate layer, okay? And let's go ahead and move this layer. All right, I'm just gonna go ahead and move this. And I also wanna rotate, like so. You know, I don't want it to be totally symmetrical and perfect, so I'm just going to rotate this like so. And we're going to use these pieces of paper as clipping masks. So what I want to do here is let's play with selection for a bit. Let's turn off the second piece of paper that I imported first. And now I'm going to go to my selection, tap on select, okay. Tap again, and we have our options here. All right, we've got our options. If you're following along, awesome. And if you want to share stuff, again, join the Photoshop Discord. believe it's bit.ly, bit.ly/psdiscord, if I remember correctly. So join that, and I'd love to see what you guys do with your photos. I just took this photo of a ripped piece of paper on a black background, and this is how powerful Photoshop is, right? Okay, so now I'm going to paint my selection. So I have this option here. It's the middle button. Looks like a paintbrush with the marching ants. And now I can paint my selection. All right, make sure I have the right layer selected. Boom, okay. And now I can paint that selection. All right, let's zoom in a little bit. Looks like we're missing some stuff here on the edge. We're missing a few things. It's not necessarily what I want exactly. So what I'm gonna do is, if you notice, again, when you have a selection active, we have additional options at the bottom of the screen, okay? And there's something magic in those options. There's the Refine Edge tool, so we're gonna use that. So let's use the Refine Edge tool. I'm just gonna tap more, and now I have Refine Edge. Boom, we've got these options, okay? I can paint to add to my selection if I want. So if I wanna come in and just paint along the edge, I can do that and do that detail work. I'll get some of these fibers in here. Another way to do this is you can adjust all these settings on the right. So there's an edge detection radius, for example, and you can see that as I slide this up, it's starting to pull in a bit more, and we can slide that back down and you'll see how that selection changes. So just play with these until you find what works for you. I've got to sneeze, guys. Hold on just a sec. Oh, pardon me. I don't have the Rona, I promise. Okay. All right, you can also shift the edge. So if you want to shift the edge out a bit, we can do that. And you can see now I'm starting to capture a little bit more of these fibers. Okay, so if you want to take the time to jump in, if you zoom in far enough, you'll get the pixels even. If you want to take the time and refine that edge, it can be super worth it. And I'm going to up the contrast a little bit as well. All right, so now I have a selection here, okay? I'm gonna hit done on my refine edge process, and now tap those three dots on the lower right. Okay, super powerful, like I said. So tap those three dots, and now I'm going to cut and paste. All right, so I'm just gonna cut and paste, and now I have the shape. I guess I didn't need to duplicate that layer in the first instance. Sometimes I think backwards. All right, so let's just move this back up. Like so. I'm gonna go ahead and delete this layer. So tap on the three dots, hit delete. All right, so now I have this rough, this rough border here. All right, something like that. Okay, so let's say I want to use this as a clipping mask for the content below. This is where I always get a little confused, honestly, because I don't use them a ton. I just usually flip and figure out what works. But there's an option to apply a clipping mask, and that is the little box with an arrow that points down. It should be familiar if you use Photoshop. I'm going to tap that. Okay, I did get it wrong. So let's go ahead, drag the layer I want to apply to the texture on top, tap that button, and now I have this torn paper edge look to my selection here. I'm just going to transform because I've got a little sliver of white, and I need to transform both of these layers. So I'm gonna tap my ellipses, begin multi-select, pick those, and then let's go ahead and group. Now I have the option to put these in a folder. So I'm gonna group those so that I can now transform together. Okay, boom. So now I have this torn paper edge to my photo, if that's what I really want. I don't have to manipulate the middle photo because I'm gonna use the same torn paper edge look on the photo toward the bottom, and we'll do a couple other things here as well. All right, so let's jump in our group. I'm just gonna duplicate this layer since I already did all the work. Let's duplicate that layer, and I'm gonna move that up. Let's place our clip again and drag this layer out of the way. All right, so there we go. It's all there. Looks like I messed up my clip a little bit. All right, let's do this one more time. how about we copy layer, and then I'm going to jump out of the group so I don't mess it up. And then I'm going to paste. All right, there we go. So now I can move this. All right, let's move this above my group here, and we can transform. I want to rotate this. All right, we'll scale it up a little bit. And now I can use this almost like a little frame here. Okay, hit done. And now I want to apply my rocks to this. So drag that below DSC 01634, tap my clip, and now I have an interesting border on these. Okay, so it might be a little bit hard to tell or identify the border between these photos because we have that ripped paper, okay? We've got that ripped paper look. So a couple things we can do here. I'm gonna jump in the group and let's go ahead and duplicate. Let's see here. Let's duplicate that layer. All right, let's put our clip back, okay? And I'm just gonna drag. I do wish there was a little bit of a nudge, but I'm just gonna drag this down like so. And there is an interesting command here. I can tap on this little lightning bolt and the diamond, and I can invert. So if I want to invert the colors, I can do that like so. Let's go ahead and move this down just a little bit more, and I'm going to change the blending mode of this layer to multiply. All right, so now I have a little bit of a shadow. If that's something you want, if you want it to appear white, we can do that as well. All right, so let's go ahead and drag this up just a little bit there. So now we have just a little bit of shadow, so it reads a little bit better, okay? And we can do the same thing with our other clipped layer here. I'm gonna duplicate this layer. Let's just replace our clip because we threw that out of balance, out of whack. I'm going to invert my paper layer and move this ever so slightly up and change the blending mode to multiply. Okay, so now I at least have a somewhat darker border there. Okay, just like that. Now if I want to group these together, once again, tap the ellipses and I can begin multi-select mode, pick the layers I want to group, and then tap the folder, and now they're in a group. All right, just like that. Although I did throw the wrong image into my group here. So let's drag our middle image out, just like that, which should be on the back. There we go. And now we're back to having our story. All right. So again, if we want to make some adjustments here to the image, we can do that. We can add an adjustment layer. Oops. Tap and hold on the plus. Now I can add an adjustment layer. And let's go ahead and play with the exposure. Okay, so exposure is when you're taking a photo, how long and how much light is allowed to come in contact with the sensor or the film. And that's going to determine the brightness overall of your image. Okay, so I'm just going to up my exposure just a little bit because I want this to feel a little brighter. I can also add another adjustment. In fact, what I really should do here, because I got to make sure, okay, it's just affecting the middle photo, but I'm going to tap on my ellipses. Well, select my layer, tap on my ellipses, and then there's an option to add a clipped adjustment. So that's going to just take the pixels on the layer that you selected and make a mask for you so that you can adjust just those things on that layer. All right. So if I want to do something like levels, for example, okay, and I just want to lighten up. Oops. My apologies there. Okay, I had that backwards. So let us try that one more time. Okay, so I'm going to just add an adjustment layer for my levels. I should be able to manipulate it. I think my exposure is messing with it. So let me go ahead and delete that. See if I can get my levels to affect. It's really weird. All right. oh well. We'll keep it as is for now. Okay, so on the top here, let's say I want to make these colors pop as well. We can do a similar thing. So add an adjustment layer, and I'm gonna play with the vibrance of the image. All right, vibrance and saturation. You can see those colors are really starting to pop now, right through there. Okay, just in the middle. And we can also play with our curves again. All right, except this is affecting everything now. So I think what I'm gonna do is let's load this layer as a selection, and then on my curves here, I'm going to invert that selection, and let's fill that with black. So now we have a mask. So I'm just affecting, let's deselect here. So I'm just affecting the image on the top, okay? So if I want to just up those curves, all right, and increase the drama in the image, we can do that as well, all right? Just like that. Beautiful, beautiful scene. All right. So again, another way to help your photos pop if you're working toward creating a story in social media. Well, what if I want to add some text? What if I want to add some text or context, pun intended, to my image? All right. So in Adobe Creative Cloud on the iPad, we can do this in two ways. I'm going to show you the tool first, and I'll show you how to get additional fonts. So here's the text tool. You tap on it, nothing happens. You might be wondering, what's happening? I tap the text tool. Well, you have to tap on the canvas. So if I want to add some text here, I'm just going to tap right there, and now I can start typing. Bryce Canyon National Bryce Canyon, new line, National Park. All right, boom. So there we go. And I have this font selected called Hot House Bold. I'll just use that for now. We'll play with some more text options in a minute. Hide my keyboard. And if I double tap, it's gonna pick a word. If I triple tap on the screen, 1, 2, 3, it's gonna pick that line, or I can just tap, drag, and select. And the reason I want to do that is I want to change the color of the text. Okay, I want to change the color of the text. So tap on your color, and now I can pick whatever color I want. Okay, just like that. Boom. And if I want to move the text around, all we have to do is tap this manipulator right here. While the text is selected, we can do a few things. We can play with leading, tracking, the font size. So if we want to make this bigger, we can even play with the paragraph style. So if I want to do centered, which I'm going to do right there, boom. So now I've got a nice centered text. All right, let's hit done. Now my text isn't showing up as well as I want. Okay, it's not showing up as well as I want for this story. So what I'm going to do here is let's go ahead and take our paintbrush, and again, we can play with some of these. There's some that are that have more texture, like this pastel brush, for example. I kind of like that. So let's use the pastel brush here, and I'm gonna make sure my text is on top of everything else. So I've got my group, top, bottom, and middle with our adjustments. In fact, since I'm gonna turn over a new leaf. Let's get organized today. All right, let's get organized. So I've got group 1, 2, and 3 right there on my file. Okay, so that font was actually pulled from Adobe Creative Cloud. Okay, Adobe Creative Cloud app on the iPad Pro, and I will show you how to import your own fonts in just a second. But yes, very cool font. I like it too. All right, so let's say I just want to get kind of artsy with this or whatever. I could use black, but I'm thinking I'm gonna use something reminiscent of the colors on the image. Okay, I was just gonna pick by eye, but you know what's better than your eye? The eyedropper. So I'm gonna drag this eyedropper over, and let's pick, I'm gonna zoom in here because I want just like a reddish tone. All right, maybe a little darker because I don't want full black. All right, something like that as I'm telling this story. Okay, so nice big brush here, and let's just do a test. I'm tapping on group 1 because I want to create a layer that's below the text. Okay, and if I tap new layer when I'm at group 2, I'm gonna have to drag it up, and so I'm just gonna save time. Preemptively tap on group 1, it'll add that layer above group 1, and I can work on that layer. So tap my plus, now I have a new layer, layer 5. We can double tap on that. Let's call this brush background. All right, so now we have a brush background layer. And now I can just kind of brush behind it, right? And we're using colors in the image, which again is gonna help it feel a bit more harmonious, all right? Something like that. Bryce Canyon National Park. If you don't like where this is, guess what? We can begin our multi-select, select, create a folder, and now I can move this to wherever I want. So if I want to move this to the bottom of my image, I can do that. We can scale it up together. Looks like I had a non-proportional scale there. We can scale this up together, boom, and now we have a label on our image. All right, one thing I like to do, like I said, I love drawing. It's fun, and I like when things that people make feel human. So I have this Sumi tilt brush, which is kind of cool. Looks like the app screaming at me because the pixels in a group cannot be modified without going into the group. You should know that, Spencer. All right, new layer, layer 5. All right, these are actually photos from 3 different places. All right, so I'm just making up whatever my story I want to tell, right? Social media is all fake anyways. So we can create our own realities however we want. Okay, so let's say I want to identify each of these activities. Okay, and because we have the power of the Apple Pencil stylus, I can make my own notes. So this was my hike that I had. This was maybe a walk. It's a little hard to see, so let's go ahead and make a selection. Maybe move this to a better spot. We can even transform this a little bit. I need to zoom in here. Let's go ahead and transform. There we go. And let's move this right there. And let's make another note using my brush. Oops. Oh, I gotta deselect. All right, so maybe those are 3 things I did, and I want to just write on my canvas. I can do that, right? So we can add elements like that. If I don't really like that, you know, maybe I just want to add some sort of, it's screaming at me again. Maybe I just want to add some sort of scribble border of some sort, right, on these images. Kind of stylize it, just like so. And I'm just scribbling with the brush, okay? Just to create a nice little frame on my social media story here. You could almost print this like a postcard, actually, and just mail it off, right? So we've gone in, used the clipping masks with a piece of paper. If you had something else you wanted to use, we could do that as well. And now we have a photo collage that's more impactful than just taking a photo and just dropping it into your social media. And it didn't take very long. So again, super powerful tool, Photoshop on the iPad Pro, to help you enhance your stories. All right, let's take a look at how to get fonts into Photoshop on the iPad. I'll cover it today. I'll cover it tomorrow. We'll refresh. So if you missed today's, that's okay. We'll go over it again. All right. So like I said, here's our fonts in the app. Okay, I can tap on the T and let's see. Actually, yeah, I'll just make a new layer, new font layer. And we'll just call this test. But before I type, let's change the color so we can see. All right. We'll just leave it as Lorem. How about we just leave it as Lorem? You know, Lorem ipsum solar dit met, whatever it says. Yeah, my mom used to speak Latin actually. And that's what Lorem Ipsum is. Okay, so here's my font. I'm going to tap on my font, double tap here, and we have some options. We can change the font, okay? And iOS has some built-in fonts, right? So if you really love marker felt, you could use that. I think Comic Sans is even in here. Is it? Maybe not. Maybe I deleted it. God forbid we use Comic Sans, right? But Papyrus is in here, so if you want to use Papyrus, you could use that. Courier is another font you could use, Helvetica, and so forth. But what if you're just tired of the basic fonts? What do you do? What do you do? That's my haiku today, Tim. Lorem ipsum solar whatever. What if you want to pick up a new font, something different, just like I did for this demo? Well, I'm going to swipe up on my iPad, and in my Adobe CC folder here, I have the Adobe Creative Cloud app, and I already have this open. But if you go to fonts, that's the tab on the bottom, right? The default's going to be learn. You'll have all sorts of options, things you can learn here. You can look at your work. You can look at your apps that you've installed. But I'm going to tap fonts, and here I can scroll through, and there's tons of options if you want to pick a font and install. So let's see if we find something that I can use in my next demo here for you guys. Trying to decide here. Ooh, I like this one. Virna. That's actually my mom's name with an E. All right. So I like this font. I'm going to hit plus. Okay, it's going to do its thing. It's asking me, do you want to install it? Cool. I want to install this font because it's awesome. So font is installed. I'm going to swipe up. Now, when I was doing this before, I had to close Photoshop and reopen it. Let's see if it actually it updated already. Cool. So let's make a change in our document here. I'm going to delete my Lorem layer because I don't need that. But how about this Bryce Canyon layer here? All right. Let's select all. I wonder if this will, no, that's not going to work because I don't have my keyboard open on my iPad Pro. So just tap, drag, select the text. And now, shoot, I forgot the name of the font. So let me look at it again. It is called Virna. I'll never forget because it's my mom's name. All right, there we go, Virna. So now that font is in Photoshop just like that. Boom, 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 baby. Just like that. Pretty awesome. Okay, let's scale it up a little bit. Or if you want to keep the scale down and make it a little bit more legible, there's a couple things we can do to our font. All right. Tap on this again. I'm going to select all. If you don't select all, it's not going to modify the text. Similar to the desktop, you want to make sure whatever you're modifying is selected. Otherwise, Photoshop won't know what to do. Can't read your mind yet. Sensei is pretty awesome. Sensei is the technology behind Select Subject, which we're going to use next. But I don't think it can read my mind yet. All right. So now I can adjust the leading, which is the space between the lines, and I can adjust the tracking. So if I want to make it a little bit more legible, right, we can pull those out. Or if I want to keep these connected and tight, we can do that as well. Hit done. Move it where you want to move it. Okay. Just like that. And now we have our cool social media story that we can drop into your favorite app. And it's important when you do this, though, to make sure you're using the right template or format. That's why I specifically picked the iPhone XR. That's why Photoshop's awesome on the iPad, because we have all these presets. Again, if I create new and I jump to screen, we have all these options. So if you want to make something for your MacBook Pro or just a desktop background, you even got the Surface Pro 4 and 3 in there. Mobile design, icon design, if you're working on UX or UI project and you need to have that template, it's there as well. All right, so like I said, I traveled a lot this summer, mostly locally because, you know, the world is changing, so to speak. People aren't really flying places. At least I'm not. I'm not flying as much as I used to. Used to fly like every other weekend. No joke. But let's say I want to fix something that happened on a trip. Now, on this trip to the desert, I did not take a lot of pictures of myself. It's really hard to take pictures of yourself with an SLR. You got to stick your hand out there, hope that you get the right shot. And at the same time, I want to show people, hey, I was there. I was a part of this experience, right? What was that first font I had? Let me pull that up. Let's see here. The first font I had, I believe, was... I'm not going to remember this. Let's see. It wasn't Bradley Hand. I'll have to look it up here. Let's see. It was one of these toward the top. It was either Gilbert. Yeah, I think it was Gilbert. No, it was Hot House. Hot House was the font that we had. Hot House. All right. This one's called Virna. So the other font was Hot House. All right. So like I said, it's hard to take selfies with an SLR. It's always super awkward. You might drop your camera into a ravine or canyon if you're trying to, you know, take a picture of yourself. And that exact thing happened to me. So there's pictures here that I like, but I didn't really get a picture of myself. So let's see if we can fix this a little bit. All right. Let's pick this picture here. DSC 01458. Actually, I'm going to create a new document. My bad. So I'm going to go home, import and open from my files, DSC 01458. Say that 10 times fast. All right. So there it is. There's a couple things I'm going to want to change about this, but let's go ahead and get me into this photo. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to import another photo from another trip that I actually took on my iPhone. Let's import that and let's combine these photos. So I actually went to the Salt Flats. I don't know if you guys have ever been there. It's an amazing landscape if you've never been. All right. So I'm going to hit done here. Okay. And let's use the power of select subject in Adobe Sensei. So tapping on the select tool, we have our flyout menu that pops out, okay? And with this menu, I'm going to use the ellipses. So let's tap the ellipses. Well, actually not the ellipses. I always confuse this. Okay, tap on the icon again, and I have the option to select subject, in addition to other options, right? So I'm going to select subject. It's going to do its work. Boom. It selected me, but it didn't quite get it right, right? So we're going to have to add to this. So using my lasso tool, make sure that you are on the add setting. That's the first option in that flyout menu. Let's pick that, and now I can go in, right? Make that selection. Boom. Because part of my crazy hoodie here was missing. Okay, part of this crazy hoodie was missing. Here's another part that was missing. So I'm gonna select, just draw with my pencil over, connect, and now we have me. Okay. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to cut. Let's hide the rest of this because I don't need it. And if I tap and hold on the plus sign for adding a new layer, I have an option to paste as new layer, and that's what I'm going to do. Paste as new layer. All right. So let's go ahead and move myself now over here, just like so. And there's a couple things we're going to want to adjust here, guys. Right? There's a couple things we're going to want to adjust. For one, the lighting on both of these photos is a little bit off. The lighting is a little bit off. So we're going to have to make this consistent in terms of the saturation, intensity, and the fact that these two were taken with different cameras. All right. So that's something I'm keeping in mind. The other thing is the reflection in the glasses, okay? There's a pickup truck here and the desert, which isn't exactly consistent with the rest of the scene. So we're going to have to update that as well. And I'll show you how to do that, okay? So the first thing we'll do here is let's go ahead and adjust our image below. I'm going to turn on these layer options. Let's add a clipped adjustment. And I'm going to adjust my hue saturation because I really love when these colors pop, Okay, so I'm gonna up the saturation here on my image. Actually, maybe a better way to do this would be vibrance. I like the vibrance control a little bit better. They're similar, but just personal preference. Okay, so add clipped adjustment. Let's do vibrance. Up that a little bit. Okay, we're gonna add. Let's make sure this is okay. There we go. I was on the wrong layer. All right, so I'm gonna up my vibrance here. And I'm going to add another clipped adjustment. And let's do our curves like we did before. Okay. Because I really want these rocks to kind of pop. Add some clarity to the sky and all that. Basically, when I look at the curves, I'm trying to look for an S shape, like a nice relaxed S shape. So down toward the darks, and a little bit up, not too much, just a little bit until you see those details starting to pop out. And you can play with it. And the best part is, because this is a this adjustment layer has a mask, I can actually jump in, and if I have a brush like this soft round opacity flow and I make it real big, just make that huge, I can actually reduce the effect in certain areas if I want. Okay, I can do that on the vibrance as well. So if you just want the colors to pop in certain spots, we can do that. All right, let's work on myself here. And I'm gonna add a clipped adjustment as well. And let's adjust hue saturation. It's gonna allow me to shift the color ever so slightly, okay? So the initial colors, we're kind of skewing a little bit greenish, all right? But I just wanna give it a little bit of a shift so that my hoodie is now not as bright toxic yellow, perhaps even taking on some of the light from the scene before. All right, in fact, if we really want to, I can make, let's see, let me think about this. I've got to think about the order here. So I'm going to, yeah, let's add a, actually I should be able to do this. So on my hue saturation here, it's kind of changing the color of the glasses, so I'm going to mask that. All right, so if I just paint here, you can see that it's very subtle, but the red is changing ever so slightly as I go ahead and paint this, okay? Because I want to be able to adjust, let's make it more extreme, and you can see. So if I make it more extreme, you'll see the difference there, all right? I just want to give it a slight nudge. I don't want my face to change too much. Okay, so I can mask that out. All right. If you want to see what the mask looks like, you can double tap on the mask, double tap again to get out of there. And yeah, if I want to just change that hoodie hue just a little bit so it feels like I'm taking on the light of the scene, we can do that. I don't know where this white spot came from, so hold please. Okay, there's a weird white spot there, so I'm gonna go back to hue saturation and let's clean up on my face. Looks like I just tapped the canvas with that brush as I was working. All right, so now I'm in the scene. All right, and I'm gonna go ahead and add just a little bit of vignette like we did before. Okay, so a new layer, and let's make a selection. Tap again, we've got our square. Check the feather settings here. All right, now I can just make a selection. It'll feather that selection. I want to actually increase that some more. It's not a great feather for me. Boom. Invert my selection. And now I can fill with my black, like so. All right, let's deselect. And I'm going to drop the opacity ever so slightly, like so. So I've got a little bit of vignette there. If I want to erase some of it, we can do that as well. I'm going to change the eraser brush, at least the size. Let's go real big, And I want to just lighten up the sky. I don't want the sky being super dark. Alright. So I'm just going to lighten up the sky a little bit here. And let's change the blending mode on our vignette to multiply. Alright. More lens flare. Okay, so the last thing we wanted to tweak here. Okay, the last little thing I wanted to tweak here, besides maybe just working on the vignette a little bit. Okay, and maybe some texture, and we'll add some text. Is this problem. Okay, we got a problem here. If someone came in with laser eyes, sharp eyes, I guess you could say, they might notice that this is completely fake. Besides a few other things. Might need a little more time. So, what I'm going to do is let's jump to my selection tool. I'm going to try and do this by hand. Okay, and I want to show you a couple things you can do. So, I'm going to make a selection here, right? And get it as close as I can to the shape in the glasses. But if I tap on more when I have something selected, I can actually transform that selection, okay? And I can just expand just a little bit to the left here and right, and now I have my glasses selected. Let's hit done. And I'm gonna go ahead and cut, tap on my plus sign here, paste as new layer, and I'm just gonna hide that for now, okay? So now I'm starting to see the background in my eyes, okay? We're not gonna leave it like that, but I'm just trying to cut out my shades, all right? So if you're very careful, if you've done this enough, you'll get a hang for it. I'm gonna go ahead and transform my selection, get it as close as I can to the shape of these glasses. If I need to rotate and scale, we can do that. This one's a little bit, based on the position, a little bit elliptical here. And also, if you want to just go in and draw that selection, you could do that as well. All right, let's hit done. And I'm going to, that should not be clipped, but I'm going to go in here. There we go. I'm going to go in here, tap, cut. All right, and let's do, oops, new layer with a paste. If I tap on layer 4, or rather the ellipses, after selecting layer 4, I'm able to laser cats with laser eyes from space. That'd be a good movie. Do you remember back in the day when they used to have those movies like Attack of the Killer Tomatoes and Birds and all the killer things? Just super campy movies. Those were the good old days. All right. So I'm going to tap on my ellipses here, hit merge. Oops, my bad. I want to merge down. Why is it not letting me merge down? All right, let's see if we can do the multi-select. We'll pick both of these and then merge these two layers. All right. Oh, that's why I was selected. Or was I? Okay. So I got a little twisted here, guys. My apologies. All right. So we'll paste this new layer. But I'll just go ahead and hide that. Okay. So now in my glasses, you can see that we have a little bit of the background. And it's not showing anywhere else, so I could probably just use this. So what I'll do is on the inside, I'm going to pick layer 1. We can even just call that selfie, my selfie layer here. Let's go ahead and use my paintbrush, and I can just pick this inside portion. See, this is why I was trying to, all right, let's see where these are. That's why, okay, that's why. I got it. So I'll just put these in place here. Because what I want to do is actually use these. So let's begin multi-select, pick these, and then I will merge those two layers. There we go. So now I can tap on this Lotus selection. I'm gonna hide, and what I want to do is on top of my selfie, okay, I'm gonna make a new layer. I want to fill these with maybe not a complete black, because that's not how shades are. Maybe something like a deep purple. So I'll just fill these in. Boom, boom. All right, something like that. Let's deselect. Turn off my clipping, and now I have shades. All right. Hello, Michelle. Welcome. Better late than never. Yes. So now I have my shades in, and I can tap on my adjustments here and adjust the opacity. Okay. Just like that. So it's starting to feel a little bit like a reflection like we had before. To further enhance this, I'm going to go ahead and pick, a color from our background here that's not exactly white. Okay, so let's drag this eyedropper tool over. Not exactly white, but close to it. And let's pick a brush here. And I just want to hit my shades. Okay, I just want to hit them with a little bit of light toward the top. Just a little bit of light, okay? And we can always just dampen down a little bit. I can see there's a little sliver here as well. So I'm going to go ahead and select and just move this dark circle. These dark circles around my eyes. I'm just going to go ahead and move that. We can even transform it if we want, just to cover. All right, so we don't have that sliver in place, okay? I'll do the same thing here. Make a selection. And it's just really natural. You're just drawing on the screen to select what you want. Super, super natural. Super, super natural. Not in a creepy way, by any means. All right, so we'll just scale this up like so. Hit done. All right. And let's deselect. And now we have a photo where I was not there taking the selfie. I was not there. Hello, Latrice. Welcome. I was not there in this scene, but I've now placed myself. All right, so let's see what we can do with a little bit more organization. I'm going to tap the ellipses again, begin multi-select mode, pick my selfie, and this adjustment layer, my shades here, and layer 6, which is my highlight. Let's see, make sure I got all of them, and let's group those. And the reason for that is if I want to move myself down, okay, and you can kind of see this reflection in my glasses is really just pulling the background in, okay, just like that. All right, so that's one thing I can do. The next is I can add, oops, I'm gonna jump back to my selfie. I'm gonna add another clipped adjustment here, and let's do levels. I'm gonna invert my mask, and that means that the levels will not be affecting the image until I paint in white. So it's a little bit reverse of what you might think. In other words, let's undo that and show you what I'm trying to do. So I'm trying to make this a little bit darker. Maybe I need to put that up. Yeah, this is weird. Sometimes it's not adjusting for me. So let me try this again. Let's just do a regular adjustment layer. We'll do levels. There we go. All right. Because what I really want to do, so I'm going to go to selfie here and tap my ellipses. I'm going to Lotus selection. And then now, if I invert this layer, or that selection, okay, let's deselect and now invert the layer. Super complex sounding, but what I wanted to do is isolate my hoodie, face, and all of that so that I can now create these adjustments, okay? And you can kind of see I'm just adjusting, say that 10 times fast, myself and my face here, okay? All right, so if this is the sun, we may want to just kind of up the intensity. But on my hoodie itself, let's make some additional adjustments here So with a black brush that is slightly feathered, all right, let's just make sure we have the right one selected. We've got the soft, round, opacity, pressure, and flow selected. I'm going to make that nice and big. And now I can just paint on the hoodie, all right, where I want these shadows to be a bit more pronounced and not blown out. Okay, I'm just painting with my Apple Pencil here and getting some shadow where I really want or need it to be. But I just want to lighten up my face, okay? Just like that. All right, so you can kind of keep working it, right? We can zoom in, check it out, like so. Again, if you want to add some text, super easy to do that in Photoshop as well. And as I mentioned before, Adobe is really great at providing updates for these apps. So, and I'll show you where some of those are coming soon as well. All right, and just by doing this, you can see I'm just pulling some detail back into the hoodie here with my shadow and so forth. All right, just pulling some detail back in while my face is a little bit brighter, okay? Although it looks like I'm a little bit pained in this picture. I'm a little bit pained. Mallory says, I love learning this, but this is a lot of work for an Instagram post. Yes, yes. You know, for me, social media is an important part of my business. So I do a lot of editing for photos and content on social media. So yes, you don't necessarily have to post these directly to social media. You could do these for your own benefit if you want to alter or modify your photos. But I find that just a little work up front can be super helpful in terms of filtering. Okay, so let's just review real quick what we did today. So we started with our image here, just some simple editing, adding a filter. Okay, here's the original photo that we took. We added a vignette, we added some color treatment, and we added some highlights just to shift things a little bit and create our reality and share our emotional experience. We also created a vertical layout for a story that we can use. And the cool thing is these are cloud PSD files. So these are being saved to Adobe Creative Cloud. If I want to go back and drop in some other photos and turn this into another story, that's how you start saving time, right? You've made a template, drop in your own photos, you've got the clipping masks already, you've got the text, we can swap out the text, doodle, draw, brush, whatever you got to do, and you have a template essentially that you can use. All right, so there's our story. We pulled in 3 photos, made some slight adjustments, created our scratch drawn in border, and imported some fonts. And our third example here, I wasn't here taking this photo, but I wanted to be there. I wanted to have a selfie that said, hey, you know, I was at Bryce Canyon National Park. So we're able to use the power of select subject, composite an image, modify, and even tweak it so that the reflections feel like it's from that actual place. So pretty cool. All right. Okay, guys, so I just want to remind you of today's schedule ahead for you. I'll be back tomorrow, by the way. Tomorrow morning, you'll get started with me. We'll rev it up. We'll get started. We're going to be using Photoshop Camera. We're going to be using Photoshop on the iPad as well to create some additional social media content, or at least approaches to making your photos pop. We'll lean into a little bit more illustrative techniques, as well as leveraging the creative power in Photoshop Camera and Photoshop on the iPad. But coming up today, we have the Photoshop Daily Creative Challenge with Paul, photo editing with Lizzie, the Illustrator Daily Creative Challenge with Andrew Hockrattle. I hope I said his name right. Branding and Identity Design at 12 with Molly Russell, the Adobe XD Creative Challenge with Jesse Showalter, and Draw Along with Kyle Webster. Again, if you've never checked out Kyle, definitely check him out. He's awesome. I mean, everyone's awesome, don't get me wrong, but I have a soft spot for drawing. And we have a design off with Voodoo Val and Sealiboo. My apologies again. I'm just notorious for butchering names, so my apologies, but love you all. And that's our show for today. All right, guys, thank you so much for hanging with me. I'll be back tomorrow. I want to see you there, and I want to see what you create with the iPad. So be sure to check out the PS Discord. That's bit.ly/PS Discord. Pretty easy. Post your work there, share, ask questions. Huge community, super active. Check it out, and I will see you guys tomorrow morning. Peace and love to you all.